From Montana's news leader, this is the MTN 530 News.
Montana bar and restaurant owners celebrating tonight as Governor Greg Gianforte removes COVID-19 capacity and curfew restrictions starting Friday. And President Donald J. Trump is now impeached for a second time. Tonight, reaction from Montana's lone congressional seat. And winds roar through Montana, leaving no corner untouched. In fact, making touchdown in Billings darn near impossible. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us midweek. I'm Jeanelle Slade. Well, if it feels like you might blow away, there might be a chance you will. High wind gusts roaring through our region, picking up dirt, debris, and pretty much anything not strapped down. For example, take a look at this, a carport in central Billings that just would not stay put. Now, those winds reaching speeds of up to nearly 70 miles per hour. And that wind isn't going to take a break for a bit. Q2 Chief Meteorologist Ed McIntosh is tracking speeds in the Weather Center so he can show us what's in store. Ed.
That's right, and a lot more wind, Janelle. In fact, let's take a look here. This was a shot from the Billings Airport. Our chief photographer, Paul Humphrey, just happened to grab his camera and catch the plane trying to, well, it does make it down, but we're hoping that the tray tables are in their full upright and locked positions because the plane had a rough time touching down. But our report from the airport was that all the flights did make it down safely. Now, wind speeds today, we'll start this off in the morning hours. They were into the 60, 70 mile per hour range by the time we start getting into the afternoon. A lot of wind around Livingston. By the time we got to even lunchtime, winds gusted up to over 65 miles an hour in the Billings area, and we saw strong gusts start to move across the eastern plains. A couple hours later, those strong gusts started to move in around Miles City. In fact, here's where a lot of those top winds started to settle in across the region. We had wind gusts that were in the order of 80 plus miles an hour in many areas of eastern Montana, 60, 70 mile per hour winds. Check it out around the Fort Peck region, wind gusts up to 88 miles per hour. Take a closer look at all of this coming up in a few minutes. But first, Chris DeRose has been monitoring a lot of those wind gusts from his house, and he's here to let you know what his experience was with the winds today.
Hey, good evening, Ed. Good evening, everybody. I'm coming to you from my apartment complex on Billings West Side, where I've been monitoring these winds basically since early this afternoon when they started to roll into town. It is causing a lot of dust to kick up, and that is limiting visibility. Typically from my apartment, I get a clear shot at the Beartooth Mountains on a nice day, but right now, I'd say we have less than a half mile of visibility. And that dust that's kicking up, well, you can believe it, it's going to get on your cars, and it's actually getting in my eyes. So if you do not have to go out in the next 24 hours or so, please do not. Also, the wind is knocking down power in certain spots. Now, I have power at my apartment complex, but my internet just went out, so I'm giving you this hit from my cell phone. Stay safe, everybody, and I'll see you tonight at 9 and at 10.
All right, thanks so much, Chris. Well, Northwestern Energy tonight reports the wind event is extreme enough it cannot keep up the outage map on its website. Now, Northwestern spokesperson Jody Black tells Q2 that it will try to restore the app tonight. Now, she says if you see low-hanging power lines or lines down, please report them on the Northwestern website. Well, tonight in Musselshell County, authorities are on scene of a fast-moving fire in the North Delphia area. That's east of Roundup. Now, the Musselshell County Sheriff's Office says on Facebook the fire is moving fast, aided by those high winds. Well, wind is whipping all across the state tonight, blowing trees over, roofs off, and people around. Take a look at some of the damage over in Missoula. A fallen tree on Higgins Avenue brought both firefighters and police as it entangled in power lines. And in the University District, officials responded to downed trees and fallen power lines that wiped out electricity to local homes. And check out this video from Flathead Lake, where the waves were rolling today near Finley Point and Woods Bay. Not only that, but Flathead Electric Co-op reports that members without power jumped to over 13,000 today. And in East Helena, wind ripped off one family's roof this afternoon, scattering debris across the street. And in Helena, just a little bit away, a 100-year-old pine tree near the Civic Center was uprooted, and thousands of residents lost power as winds knocked down several power lines. Well, come Friday, statewide COVID-19 restrictions on capacity and operating hours for bars and restaurants are no more. Today, Governor Greg Gianforte announced the change as part of a major revision of Montana's COVID-19 directives. However, Gianforte's action does not change the situation in counties where health boards have adopted their own restrictions on hours or capacity. Gianforte says his goal is to make the state directives clearer and easier to implement. He says after consulting with health leaders and businesses, he felt the capacity and hours regulations were just not necessary. The new directive says businesses should create COVID policies based on industry best practices.
We can reduce the burden on our small business owners while simultaneously protecting the health of Montana workers and customers. These two are not mutually exclusive.
Gianforte also repealed the state-specific limit on size of gatherings. The new directive says public events should be managed in a way that meets CDC guidelines. Well, the governor's new directive allows many bars and restaurants to just get back to normal. The Montana Brewing Company and Hooligan Sports Bar will start operating at full capacity and back to longer hours. With today's announcement, restaurants, bars, and breweries and distilleries and casinos can now operate past 10 with no limits on capacity. The brew pub has been at 50%, and management tells us the business will be ready to open at full capacity on Friday.
We will be setting up the tables and everything to kind of go back to how it used to look in here. We've kind of been under these restrictions for about 9 months now, so it'll be kind of a little bit of a learning curve to get back to somewhat normal, but we're ready and we're very excited for the opportunity to do so.
And Katie Lehman says she's excited for the employees who will now work more hours and have the chance to earn more tips. Well, Montana health authorities report 3 more COVID-19 related deaths so far today, 1 victim in each Yellowstone, Bighorn, and Lake counties. The total deaths across the state now at 1,072. Active cases are hovering right around 4,800. That's actually 1,074 deaths. Active cases are hovering right around 4,800, and more than 82,000 Montanans have recovered so far. Well, a 20-year-old Billings man accused of stabbing his mom to death on Monday pleads not guilty. 20-year-old BEAU PAPIN appeared in district court via video to face charges including felony homicide. His bond is now set at $1 million. PAPIN allegedly stabbed 41-year-old Jessica PAPIN multiple times at their home, an apartment on the 100 block of Calhoun Lane. The victim was stabbed in the face, neck, and her wrists were slashed. Security footage shows BEAU PAPIN leaving out a window. He later returned to the scene covered in blood, and police took him into custody. Court documents state PAPIN admitted to a nurse at the hospital that he killed his mom. If PAPIN posts bond, he's ordered to be on GPS and to have no contact with the victim's family or any witnesses in the case. Well, just hours ago, the U.S. House voted to impeach President Donald Trump for a second time. But Montana's only member of the body, Republican Representative Matt Rosendale, voted no. The only statements today from Rosendale on his vote came via Twitter. He said impeaching the president would only further divide the country. He also called the vote another episode of the Democrats' disgraceful political theater. The House passed the impeachment resolution on a 232 to 197 vote, with all Democrats and 10 Republicans voting to impeach the president. One of those Republicans was Wyoming Representative Liz Cheney, the 3rd highest ranking Republican in the House. Now, earlier Wednesday, Rosendale blasted Cheney for her vote, saying she ignored the will of Republican voters and is unfit to lead the GOP caucus. And Rosendale was elected as Montana's only U.S. House member last November and was sworn into office just 11 days ago. Well, today, minority Democrats at the Montana legislature unveiled some of their top priority bills for the session, and those priorities focus on health care. State Representative Mary Cafaro of Helena said the bills fulfill Democratic priorities of good health care coverage, job creation, and lowering costs. Her bill would fine-tune an existing job training program aimed at easing a shortage in healthcare workers during the pandemic. And State Senator Shane Morajo of Missoula has a bill requiring medical providers to give patients written cost breakdowns for non-emergency procedures. And State Representative Jessica Carjala of Billings has a bill that would limit insulin costs for diabetes patients to $35 a month. Now, when asked if Democratic-sponsored bills would gain much traction when Republicans hold big majorities at the legislature, Morajo said he certainly hopes so.
We represent a major portion of the state. And I would hope that our colleagues across the aisle would recognize that and recognize the fact that their voices are just as important as everyone else's. So, all of these bills, they cost little or nothing to the taxpayer. They help our economy, and they lower costs for Montanans.
Republican Governor Greg Gianforte has also talked about supporting bills that would stop surprise medical billings. The Democratic-sponsored bills have yet to be introduced at the 2021 session. Well, up next on tonight's MTN 530 News, right here on Q2, the first round of COVID-19 vaccines started today at a local senior living facility, adding hope to someday have visitors again. Plus, one Skyview athlete doesn't mess around on the mats. He holds a pinning record and hopes to keep smashing it. Keep it here.